Once upon a time, there lived a landlord named Raghav. He was a man of great wealth and influence, owning vast lands that stretched as far as the eye could see. But his wealth was not earned honestly. It was built upon the misfortunes of the poor, the illiterate, and the desperate. Raghav was known for his cunning ways, offering small loans to those in need, only to trap them in a never ending cycle of debt. Through manipulation, deceit, and forged documents, he slowly expanded his empire, taking land from those who could not repay him. One day, Raghav set his sights on a small yet fertile piece of land owned by an elderly woman named Kamala. Her plot, though tiny in comparison to his vast estate, was of great sentimental value to her. She had inherited it from her ancestors, and for decades she had tilled its soil, growing food that sustained her. The land was more than just a means of survival. It was her home, her history, and the resting place for her loved ones. The thought of losing it never once crossed her mind. However, Raghav, greedy as ever, saw an opportunity. Unlike the other villagers, Kamala had never borrowed money from him. She lived a simple life, content with what she had, making it impossible for him to use his usual tactics. Frustrated, he devised a new scheme. He bribed a corrupt government official to forge ownership papers in his name, making it appear as though the land had always belonged to him. With the official's help, he arranged for a legal notice to be served to Kamala, demanding that she vacate the property immediately. The day the notice arrived, Kamala was sitting on her porch, weaving a basket as the sun cast its golden glow over the fields. When she read the papers, her hands trembled and her heart pounded in disbelief. How could this be? How could someone claim ownership of the land where she had spent her entire life? Desperate, she ran to the village court, pleading her case before the judge. But justice had already been bought. Raghav, with his wealth and influence, had ensured that no one would stand against him. The court ruled in his favor, declaring that Kamala must leave her land at once. Dejected and heartbroken, Kamala had no choice but to prepare for her departure. The news spread quickly through the village, and the people gathered to witness the sorrowful sight. Some pitied her, some whispered words of comfort, but none dared to challenge Raghav. He arrived at her home with his associates, eager to claim his newfound possession. As they watched Kamala gather her belongings, a victorious smirk played on his lips. Before leaving, Kamala turned to him with tears in her eyes and a request. "Sir," she said softly, "you have taken my home, my land, and my life's memories. I have nothing left. But I ask for one small favor. This soil is dear to me, for it holds the essence of my ancestors, my childhood, my joys and sorrows. Please allow me to take a basket of soil with me. That way, even in my new home, I will have a piece of this place close to my heart." Raghav chuckled. It seemed like such a small and insignificant request. After all, he had taken everything from her. What harm could a single basket of soil do? Fine, he said dismissively. Take as much as you want. Kamala knelt down and began filling her basket with the rich, dark soil of her land. She scooped handful after handful, pressing it down to fit more inside. The basket grew heavier and heavier until it overflowed. Finally, she tried to lift it, but it was too heavy for her frail frame. Struggling, she turned to Raghav. Sir, would you kindly help me place this basket on my head? Raghav laughed at her feeble attempt and stepped forward. Oh, you poor old woman, he mocked. Did you not think before filling it so much? You can barely lift it. How do you plan on carrying it? He effortlessly picked up the basket but was surprised by its weight. Even for him, it was heavy. Kamala looked at him with tearful yet piercing eyes. Sir, she said, her voice trembling yet strong, this is just a basket filled with soil from my land, and even in my strongest years, I could not carry it. I have spent my entire life here, and yet I struggle to take even this much with me. One day I'll leave this world, and I won't be able to take anything with me, not even a handful of this soil. She took a deep breath and continued. But you, sir, you have stolen land from so many, amassing wealth beyond measure. Tell me, when your time comes, how much of this land will you be able to take with you? Raghav stood frozen. Her words pierced his heart in a way nothing else ever had. He had spent his entire life chasing wealth, acquiring land, and deceiving people. Yet, in that moment, he realized the truth. He would leave this world just as empty handed as he had entered it. The land he so greedily claimed would remain long after he was gone. And all he would leave behind was a legacy of dishonesty and greed. His hands trembled as he placed the basket down. For the first time in his life, he felt the weight of his actions. Not just the weight of the soil, but the burden of guilt pressing down on him. Tears welled up in his eyes as he fell to his knees before Kamala. Forgive me, he whispered, his voice breaking. I have been blinded by greed for too long. I have wronged so many, and today your words have shown me the truth. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the once powerful landlord bowed before the old woman. He stood up and turned to the government official. Burn those forged documents, he commanded. This land belongs to Kamala, and it always will. Gasps of shock and murmurs spread through the onlookers. No one had ever seen Raghav admit to his wrongdoings, let alone give up land voluntarily. Kamala, too, was taken aback. She had expected nothing but cruelty from him, yet here he was, repenting for his sins. Tears of relief streamed down her face as she folded her hands in gratitude. May you find peace, sir, she said softly. It is never too late to change. That day, something changed in the village. Raghav, once feared and despised, became a different man. He began repenting for his misdeeds, returning land to those he had wronged. He used his wealth to build schools and hospitals, ensuring that no one would fall victim to deception again. The villagers, though skeptical at first, saw the sincerity in his actions and slowly forgave him. As for Kamala, she continued to live on her land, tending to her crops and watched the seasons change. The soil beneath her feet felt lighter, not just because she had gained her home, but because she had lifted the burden of hatred and resentment for her heart. The moral of the story: do not cheat, do not be greedy. True happiness comes not from taking more than you need, but from being content with what you have. Wealth and land may be acquired in life, but in the end, we take nothing with us.